That's the truth. That's the truth. So I'm just going to go right into it. And, as soon as we're done, I'm just going to take the file. I'm recording us, and I'll take this file and I'll upload it to Facebook. So it will be something that we can share widely from there.
Cool.
And something else I can do, though, is go live on my phone while we're talking.
Good idea.
So we can get them every way we can. So, and Margaret McDonald tagged me in a post. It just told me that. All right. So what's happening, Dave Arcari? Welcome to both my podcasts. So I'm going to put these on Life Music and the Pursuit of Answers, and I'm going to put this on The Working Circle. The latter one is something basically designed to help other independent musicians find their way through our interesting world of being an independent musician, which has become 1,000 times more interesting now that we have a pandemic. So it's now, because of technical difficulties, as you said, when it happens, it doesn't happen halfway. It is now about 12:15 in Chicago. It's 6:15 Glasgow mean time. Is that correct?
Yep, 14 minutes past 6 here on the banks of Loch Lomond.
So you were out taking a walk today. Oh, you said you were taking a walk by Loch Lomond, as we call it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky to live here. We're right on the eastern shores of Loch Lomond. And, today has been a bit slow. It's been the day after the night before, because I did a full-length live stream concert last night, which went pretty good. And I'm suffering for it today. But there was most of the day has been spent writing thank yous notes to all the people that made donations and showed their support. And I realised that it was quite a nice day here, and our clocks changed at the weekend. I don't know if you have summertime.
We do that, yeah. We spring forward in March. We move it forward an hour. There's a lot of argument whether we ought to even be bothering anymore. They did that for farmers, and that's only 2% of our population anymore. But yeah, we did that a couple weeks ago, and you always lose the hour there and then it takes a week to catch up.
Well, it's a kind of similar debate here as well, but it was Saturday night that the clocks went forward, and so I went away out for a walk here. I had some merch orders to put in the post box, and of course the whole place is like a ghost town. There's only 30 people live in this village, and nobody's out and about, and there's no tourists allowed. So I went out, thought I'll go out for a half an hour walk. And I went out for a walk, and it was beautiful, and I'm trying to recce places that I can maybe film a video for. I've got a single out next month, and then another one coming in May. So I've done the video for April, but I'm needing to get a video shoot together for the single that's coming in May. And I thought I found some good spots where I want to do it. And I'm looking around, and then I don't know what made me look at my watch. But because it was bright sunlight, I thought, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But it wasn't. It was like 10 to 6, and I was still 20 minutes away from home. So I had a bit of a mad panic.
And I'd make sure the world waited for you, man. Dave, the first time we first met when I lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 5 hours north of Chicago, where I am now. You came through there, played a show. Seen you since then. We've kept in regular contact. We even played a show together. here in Chicago, November of 2018 now, a year and a half ago almost.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Seems like a month ago.
I know it does. It's well, that's the thing. When you get to be our age, 40, uh, the years get a little bit smaller portion of your overall lifespan, so they go quicker. In that same show, actually, my set on that show, the sound engineer did such a great job. My set from that particular show, I just split up the tracks and put it out there as a live album, live at Uncommon Ground.
Yeah.
It's all your fault, But, now,
fun place.
Yeah, it is, and they have two locations. They're both shut down now. Of course, in Chicago, we're in a shelter-in-place order. So whenever people get to listen to the podcasts that come of this, we were recording it at the time of the coronavirus pandemic. In the U.S. has just surpassed anybody else with the number of cases. We have about 150,000. There are 40,000 in New York City. They sent in a Navy hospital ship to offer more beds. They're turning Central Park into a hospital, and it's frightening. And that's one of the biggest things that we're dealing with. Really, is the question of fear. It took me 4 stores to find toilet paper the other day, because people are starting to hoard and they're freaking out. We're allowed to go outside. It's not martial law or something. We're told to please keep your distance. In Chicago,
we're only allowed out for shopping,
right,
or to pick up medicine.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much they've got this rule where you're allowed out for one bit of exercise a day, and you're not to go more than 2 miles from your home. Because what was happening here last week, I mean, we've been in kind of lockdown for a week and a half, but last weekend up where we live, I've never seen the place so busy, because everybody thought they'll come out the city, and God, shit, man. Anyway, it's all stopped now. The place is like a ghost town.
Yeah, and you're in a small village outside Glasgow, yeah.
We're about 25 miles north of Glasgow, right on the eastern shores of Loch Lomond.
Ah, got it. Yes, I've seen pictures when you've shared them. It always seems like it's raining or cloudy when I see the pictures.
Well, look, I don't know. You're maybe not going to, because we've got that background thing going, but the sun's shining today.
Well, see, and that you don't want to show anybody that will ruin the image people have of Scotland. That it's rainy and cloudy and windy, and then when you say it's a nice soft night, they think you mean it. So Chicago, we have, or in Illinois, the state that we're in, we have 5,000 cases. 10 days ago, we had 7. So it's accelerating very quickly. Yeah, so, and there's every musician in town. I talked to a guy yesterday, he had 28 gigs canceled, so all of a sudden everybody's unemployed. Now, in the UK, so Glasgow's Scotland, Scotland's UK, at least for now. And you have built into place social programs that people can immediately turn to, yes?
Financially, you mean?
Financially, yeah.
Well,
things.
It's not really. Last week, they announced, the government announced things for self-employed people, but it's not going to. Nobody is going to get anything until into June, and it doesn't really take into account the kind of nature of somebody that. I mean, I'm a 100% independent musician, songwriter, and it doesn't really take into account what everything is so up and down regularly. The system doesn't really understand the nature of our income and how it works. So it's not really. I don't think it's. I'm pretty much not holding out any hope for much help, if any, from that. So I'm just having to really hope that the public. I mean, we're lucky in the UK that we get probably much better performance royalties than you do in the USA.
I
We
didn't know
get
that. That's
performance
good to know. I
we
guess.
get performance royalties for pretty much every gig. Um, Anything that's classed as a music venue that is somewhere that's ticketed and holds more than 100 people and relies on live music as their main thing. In other words, they're not primarily a bar or primarily a restaurant. They're primarily a live music venue. They PRS collects about 3%, I think it is, of the ticket money or the gate, and
Oh, wow.
distributes. And of that 3%, 2.5% of it is distributed amongst the songwriters of the material performed. So, for instance, I might get a gig. I've done gigs with people here like Toby Keith, Steve Earle, quite a few big names. Now you're playing a show with a ticket price of £60 or £70, and there's 2,500 people there.
Right.
So it doesn't take
That can
rocket
turn into
science to work out.
a nice paycheck. Yeah.
Well, 2.5% of that is distributed between myself and Steve Earle, and he maybe played an hour and a half, and I played half an hour. We both played all our own stuff, so I'm in a quarter of that 2.5% of the gate. But I mean, that often runs into four figures, things like that. So even if you're only getting paid a few £100 for the actual show, and I played Glastonbury Festival in the UK a few years ago now. The fee wasn't brilliant. We did have backstage camping and catering and passes for the two of us for the whole event and everything we needed. But the actual fee wasn't huge. But the PRS money from that was because I played about 4 different slots over 3 days. And the PRS money was, the fee becomes completely insignificant here. And also we get airplay, we get royalties from radio airplay.
Right.
Which you tend not to get because there's so much community and college radio, and
True. Yeah.
we get all our local radio, BBC stations. You get played on there. You pick up, you pick up odds and sods of royalties from radio airplay, from jukeboxes, from I mean, I'm signed up to the AMI in the USA that does the jukeboxes over your way. I don't really get very much from them, but in the UK, there are the income streams are possibly more lucrative and more varied than they are for you guys, I think.
No, you're absolutely right. So we can send our set list into so I can send my set list to BMI, and if the venue pays BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC dues, I can get a piece of I can get a royalty from that. If they do not pay dues, then BMI is going to come, break their windows or legs or something until they pay their dues. So I like to be polite about it, regardless of what anybody may think of venues and the way they treat artists. We don't need to be shutting them down. So I try to make sure that when I do that, it's a venue that I know is actually paying those dues. Sometimes it may be a cafe. They're just bringing music in. They don't feel they can afford the dues. They ask you to play just original material, and that's usually the indicator then that they are not paying dues. If it's a larger venue and they're not paying dues, I don't really have a big problem getting them in trouble because they can afford it, But yeah, the numbers you're talking about are much more considerable than what we get. One way that I push for more, that where I can get more royalties, is actually through YouTube. So anytime that my music is used on somebody's video, and of course I use it on any instructional video or anything else that I do, I put my music on there, and literally within 10 minutes I get an email that there's a copyright claim by my PRO, Performing Rights Organization, to claim that copyright, and thereby every time the video plays, I get paid. YouTube is the biggest radio station in the world now. But you're right about community radio and stuff. I have to sign constant disclaimers when people want to play my music that I won't come after them for royalties if I want my music played. And that seems kind of crazy if you're a community interest and you're not necessarily doing a lot for the community. But yeah, that's the way we're set up here. I don't know. It's why I'm an independent artist and have been all my career. That's why I never pursued a major record deal. Early on, I researched it, and I think I quickly deduced I wanted more than the 3% that a major record label would give me. And
Yeah.
now, with the way the world is now, where as independents, we can get our music into sync licensing, into movies and film, TV, and now that more than half of the income on the planet in the record and from recorded music is actually going to guys like you and I. That's a whole lot of $20 payments to independent artists, man.
Well, certainly your the sync market, especially for TV in the USA, is a lot better. I do a fair bit of music for production company over here, publishing company, and production company over here. And the problem is that all the STV or independent TV and BBC, they all have blanket agreements. So when your stuff gets used on the television here, it's not really very lucrative. It's okay. I mean, you get paid for it, and it's a nice little, ongoing on the back burner stream. But it's not like getting on Weeds or Grey's Anatomy or any of the big shows in the States that seem to have a much more lucrative sync.
They do. They're also very, very particular about what they want. And there's, because of streaming now, there are something like 40 times as many shows. We have 20 shows being filmed in Chicago. Well, nothing's being filmed in Chicago right now, but when they get back up and running, there's 20 shows being filmed in Chicago. We have access right here to music supervisors because their production houses are here as well. And when you do get picked, when they do grab you, the paychecks can be pretty considerable. And of course, they're paying you to advertise you. You can't beat that,
Yeah.
And then we have, and now we're talking before we started this officially, before I hit the record button, and I'm for, hey, Darren, I've got people watching on my phone. So I'm going live, Facebook folks, on my phone because due to a technical difficulty, Zoom didn't want to send me to Facebook Live today after several tries, and I didn't want to eat too far into Dave Arcari's evening. So if you can,
and I see Tom Wallace is watching from this end as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I see. Yeah, I see Dave Arcari is watching, and just for fun, I'm going to wave at you. See? So I wave.
Oh yeah. You're down here.
It's crazy. We're everywhere. So there's also endorsements and there.
Hang on. Visual feedback.
That's just video feedback. It's like infinity of fill. It's too much. Darren, you're right. Zoom is still awesome. I use it for a lot of teaching and stuff. So two other income streams, Dave. One, I just mentioned teaching, but I was going to first move into, I see on your screen there, you have Smokehead. Is that an Islay?
It is. It's a single malt, Isla single malt. Sister company to Glengoyne, which is our local distillery here in Loch Lomond. And you might, I think probably, did we have some Glengoyne with us when I came and played with you at Uncommon Ground?
I think you may have, yeah. Yeah.
That tour, Glengoyne had been very, very good to us. The last album, the live album that put out, they've always been very supportive, and it's not like there's huge amounts of cash changing hands, or it's not really like sponsorship. It's just more like I was helping them out and they would help me out. We both valued each other's audiences and the overlap. And when we did the launch, certainly, of the Live at Memorial Hall album, Glengoyne did the press and media industry launch event, which was absolutely amazing. We could never put something like that together ourselves. And they did a special bottling as well.
Right.
And there's probably still some bottles kicking about with my label on it. Anyway, last year we did various things. I mean, they'd asked for World Music Day a couple of years back. I've got a song called Whiskey in My Blood, and they asked, they liked the song, and they asked if I would go on World Music Day and film a video at the distillery of me playing that song, and we'd punt it out. But what the corporate powers that be, the song doesn't really promote sensible drinking. I do, but
yes, you're right. I do, but that's not what the song's about. Yeah, I have a song. I have a song, "Pass Me Another," and yeah, it's all about drinking and sex. I'm a happily married sober man, but I'm still writing those songs. You know, it's still music. It's supposed to be an enjoyable time here. You know.
Well, after that, I actually there's a banjo release, a single that came out a couple of years ago called Whiskey Trail. So that was much more in keeping with Glengoyne's brand values and stuff. Although it doesn't mention them in the song, it reflects their history, and it is largely the Glengoyne song. Anyway, to cut a long story short, or make it longer than it should be, last year, we had a National Resophonic had decided that there was going to be a Dave Arcari signature model, and this was going to be launched in San Luis Obispo, California, where they're based, at the beginning of my summer tour, West Coast and Midwest tour. So I thought, this could be it'd be quite nice to get Glengoyne involved in this, and we could maybe do a whiskey to coincide with the guitar launch and stuff, and do something that would maybe give Glengoyne some more visibility. It would draw some attention to the whole thing, and it might be quite funky. So Glengoyne, initially when I got in tow with Glengoyne 4 or 5 years ago, they had Smokehead is a sister company to Glengoyne. And they suggested Smokehead, but I couldn't really see past Glengoyne, so I just kind of let that fly past me and just kept concentrating with Glengoyne. Anyway, back in February, March last year, when we were trying to sort of put the stuff in place for the launch to the guitar, they brought it up again and said, look, you really should look at, we'd like to pair you up with Smokehead, because we think it is probably a better, brand alignment is a bit more closely aligned with me, I guess. And sure enough, I looked through all the Smokehead stuff, and it fitted like a glove. We're both coming from the same place, the independence, the DIY, the like it or lump it. It's not for everybody. Just all the values I have in my music were pretty much mirrored by Smokehead, and we started working a bit together. They were supporting things. I'm trying to give them some visibility. They're giving me some visibility, and when they saw that this song actually that's coming out, stick to your guns, which drops on the 17th of April, I had. It's a bit like the Whiskey Trail being my Glengoyne song. Stick to Your Guns is actually a Smokehead song, although it doesn't mention Smokehead at all. And it could quite easily be about a person as it could be about whiskey. And it's up to the listener to decide what the fuck I'm talking about,
Right.
But
yeah.
So anyway, when I did that, I messed about with I like the Smokehead skull, and if you see the resonator on that, what direction it is? No, it's that way.
Stick to your guns. Yeah, it's over your right shoulder. Yep.
So that sort of design is based on one of my guitars, and the red bit is kind of like a bit of an abstract Smokehead skull. So I thought I'd better run this past these guys. You can't really just take somebody's logo and slap it on something. So I told them what I was doing. They loved the artwork, and they loved the song. So they asked if they could help promote it and stuff. So once again, and they also supported last night's live stream.
That's fantastic. And Dave, there's two things you touch on here that I think are important for independent artists to know. For people in general too, there's some lessons in it. One is the like it or lump it philosophy that I love the phrase. This is this is who I am. This is my story. It might not be for you, but this is who I am. And it's a total authenticity. It's having come to know you and as an individual and know you as an artist both, there's a tremendous human being there that's a lot of fun to know. And, always just a genuineness. And so that comes across too when you say something like, hey, this might not be for everybody, but that's just the way it is. So that's, I think, an important lesson for everybody to know. Your story doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody. And as an artist, if you say, if I ask somebody, hey, who's this for? And they say, oh, I want everybody to listen. Well, not everybody's going to listen unless you want to come up with the lowest common denominator, most stale, increasing waves of blandness garbage you can find. I looked for more adjectives there, but I couldn't find any. And but if you're really true to who you are and what you're doing as a creative individual, you have almost a responsibility to continue to be authentic and to be comfortable with the fact that not everybody's going to enjoy what you're doing. And if you want to maintain that kind of creative freedom, you also have to be okay with something that artists are notoriously weird about, and that's making a dollar. The only reason that I have creative freedom is because I have focused on developing a career around what I do musically. I've never compromised my art as a result of that. And thankfully, it's becoming a little more okay. When we were kids, for instance, I remember, with kids? I mean, I was in my 20s, but I remember when Eric Clapton did a commercial for Michelob, and the whole rock and roll world went ballistic on him, that sellout and all this kind of stuff. And his response was, I need to pay my bills. What do you want from me? And I like the beer. So it was like, now it's a lot more okay, but people are still a little funny about it.
I think it's if you can bring it in and it's reflective of your own values, and it doesn't go against anything that you stand for, that can be a good help. But it's funny what you say about money, because last night's live stream, I didn't want to make it a pay-per-view or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I absolutely had to try and raise some cash. So I wanted to give people the option that if they were in a position to support something and they wanted to, that they could, and it would be much appreciated, but it certainly, it wasn't expected, because I'm deeply uncomfortable, talking or not talking about money, but just when it comes to money. I mean, even when it comes to negotiating gigs, Margaret does all that, because I'm shit at that. I'm too soft, and
just want to give it, right? Yeah.
I just want everybody to have a nice time,
Yeah, I'm with you. I have, I have a collaborator on the business end of my things, and then I also have Megan, my wife, who's also part of the central committee, helping me keep my business on track. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, I don't know, should I, do this or that? I want people to enjoy the music and have a good time, but at the same time, the value of what we do is tremendous. And because, like you said, it's earlier, it's so hard for people to understand the nature of our work and how much work goes into it too. When we get to the stage, 98% of the work it was done. When we get to the stage, that's the fun part more than any other part of what we do. And most of it, a lot of it can be enjoyable, but there's also stuff like you say where it's like, I'm no good at negotiating the gigs. I need somebody to do that for me. That's just wisdom, man. That's getting, knowing that I'm worth this much and I should get this much, but I'm gonna have somebody else do it so I can be separated from the discomfort of it.
Precisely.
But when this whole pandemic shut down Chicago, I had responses like this. Oh, well, Phil, you're going to have like a whole lot more time to write songs. Oh, because that's all I'm sitting doing. All I do is sit around all day, write songs. No, there's so much.
How do you keep the boat afloat?
Yeah, trying to keep the boat afloat. Exactly. And I've actually been busier in the last 10 days than I was, previous to that, because of trying to move everything to the online world. And because I've been gathering up resources for other out-of-work musicians because of the work that I do as a music coach and the work I do with the City of Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs because they've canceled Blues Fest and everything, you know. So when I'm part of a committee with them, it's an unpaid gig. It's just for the year of Chicago music is what it is. And but their only concern was, what can we do for, you know, local musicians? Everybody's all of a sudden out of work. So I've been gathering up resources and things like that, both for myself and, you know, to spread around as much as possible. And so, you know, because of the nature of the creative person, because, you know, when we're making a career in it, that means we understand the final step is sharing the music or the theater piece or the painting or whatever. And because of that sharing nature, that giving nature of who we are, we're just sort of, you know, intuitively lined up when somebody's in need of us. So in times like this, we're, I think, that much more inclined to reach out and use our adaptability that comes with being a creative person to go and hey, what can I do to help other people? But to anybody who you know is listening to this or gets around to listening to this or what have you, do not hesitate to hit that tip button, and please be generous, because when the world stops, you know, when everything shuts down like it is, the first things to go are the arts, because we have to be interacting with people in order to make a living. So, and I'm glad you did the live feed the way you did too. And it's good that Smokehead got behind it, because that's something companies ought to be doing as well, because their company's made up of people, you know. So when they show a concern for people, then they're demonstrating that they recognize they're a company of people. Do you think people do you think you do just as well when you say, hey, it's free, but send me, you know, please don't hesitate to tip?
It's the first time I've ever done, you know, I've never really run any crowdfunding. I've never done any, you know, what's it called? The
Patronage, Patreon. Yeah.
I've never really done anything like this. With, you know, I struggled a little bit at the beginning of the crowdfunding thing, because I felt that I did just something I didn't like about it. And then somebody quite rightly pointed out that this is really just like taking pre-orders. And I kind of warmed to it a little bit, but I just never embraced that. And so doing something where, I guess you do a live stream, you're not really getting money for nothing, asking people for money for nothing, because they're getting the show. Yeah. But a lot of people, a lot of the messages I've had from people are people who, you know, were thanking me for doing it, because basically they've got bugger all to do, and you know, it was something different for them to watch. It was a bit of a distraction from the crisis. So people appreciated it. To be honest, I'll get nothing to compare it with that. I was overwhelmed with the support, both, you know, in kind and monetary. I was quite overwhelmed by it, and I wasn't really expecting it. And I didn't have any expectations, because so I have no idea whether the softly approach, giving people the option. Often I think you give people an option, people are generally pretty good, and if it's worth something to them, they'll recognize it. And fair enough, there's a lot of people out there who really are not in a position to donate. Everybody's in the shit together, you know.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know is the answer to the question.
Well, I heard a lot of gratitude there, you know. So I think that's the answer right there, isn't it? That you found a comfortable way to do it. You're overwhelmed with the response you got, and you're grateful for it. And so it sounds to me like everybody wins, you know, because
and I guess, you know, the fact that I spent most of the day writing personal emails to people to thank them,
yeah,
that says it all, you know, without saying too much. That says quite a lot.
It does. It says quite a lot about you, Dave, because a lot of people wouldn't bother to, they just go to the bank. They wouldn't bother to write the thank you. And that's a lesson to any musician or artist out there is take that time.
Well, I
I
could
thought it
have,
was,
I could have had pulled all the email addresses into Mailchimp or something and done a mass email out, but I needed it needed. I still haven't responded to messages and comments about the stream in general, which I'll do later on. But my prime thing was I really want to recognise that how much I want people to know how much I appreciated them supporting and watching, but the donations as well. It was quite humbling.
that's outstanding. Now let's just move on to your background. How long you've been doing this? What made you start? Arcari is an Italian name, is it not?
Yeah, and there's some in Chicago, but they're not related. But the last show I did in Chicago, I did a show at the Montrose Saloon last August, and there were some Arcaris that not unrelated, but came along, and
That's
a guy called Pod Arcari, who's in Chicago, and we met for the first time, and he brought some folk along. It was nice. So yeah, it's Italian a few generations back. But I was born in Glasgow. My dad was born in Glasgow in 1908. His parents had just come into the UK just at the turn of the century, the turn of the last century, obviously.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's great. And what brought you into blues? You have an alt rock, alt blues kind of thing going on. If anybody who has not seen Dave Arcari live just simply has to, and that's all there is to it.
The alt thing is really a cover up for not knowing what I was doing and not being able to do it like anybody else, which at the time was I saw as a hindrance, but has become an absolute blessing, because I didn't start playing guitar until I was about 18 or 19. I left school, got a job working in a bank, did that for a few years. Then I got a job with a finance company, and I was a debt collector for not a few years, about a year I did that. That was pretty shit. But it was a real eye opener.
It doesn't sound like a
I was starting to get into guitars and music and stuff, and when I was working in the bank, I bought a guitar and started teaching myself Bobby Dylan songs and stuff like that. But none of my mates played, so I had no concept of timing, and I just changed chords when I kind of felt like it. So a few years later, when I jacked in being a debt collector, I'd gone to college. You couldn't do music or anything. If you wanted to do music or music-related thing in the UK, you had to go to the conservatoire and do classical music. You needed higher music. You needed exams. You needed to be able to read music and have your grades and stuff. It's not like now where you can go to kind of music college and music business stuff and audio engineering and all these things. So back then, you just had to teach yourself. So I bought a Fostex X15 multi-track and did a lot of busking, went to college, left Glasgow, went to college in the east coast of Scotland, and did a sort of communications course, which was mostly PR and marketing, graphic design, shit like that.
Yeah.
A lot more busking to get through that. Started my first band. And we were talking 30 odd years ago now. I can't believe it's so long ago. But I didn't really do the full-time thing. Full-time solo thing I didn't start doing until 15, 16 years ago. Up until then, I'd been in various bands. I spent some time in corporate life, in communications, internal communications, and also press and media relations and stuff like that. Spent some time working for a PR consultancy. That's kind of like my background: journalism, photography, all that kind of stuff. All quite useful things to employ for your own stuff, because we can't afford to hire people. So what do? You learn to do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, and you're not the first musician I've met who's got his career rolling along and he's running most of the show, and who has also a background in marketing or PR or communications. They seem to kind of fall into place. Oh, my wife Megan has studied film and communications in college, and she's an actor. We have somebody on my label which the label's paid for through Patreon. I don't take any money from the artists. It's just a service to them. But we've got a new artist on the label, and she's from Kenya, lives here in Chicago, and she's studying communications. So and I opened for a guy in February who came through on tour. He used to be a marketing guy, So there's a lot of, and like you say, it's very valuable. Those are certainly skills you need.
But definitely transferable skills that you can use, to bolster things up.
And so you don't really know what you're going to be doing for a bit until you get the all clear over there as to public events and things. I did see your email that I responded to and asked you if you wanted to do this. And thank you again for taking your time here with me across the pond, the Across the Pondcast.
Pleasure. It's nice to be asked to do that.
Yeah, well, it's and I think a lot of people may be busier now, just trying to find out how to adjust to things, But you say you're not sure about gigs in May yet, and that sort of thing. Will you be doing more?
The US, I mean, certainly a few of the gigs. The big problem we've got, the biggest problem that this has brought is that we probably spent, Margaret and I basically are like a little cottage industry. Margaret deals with all my bookings and tour management stuff, and I do all the other things of social media, the design, the photography, all my PR stuff's mostly selfies. And but so we basically invested from December up till now our time into booking shows that would, when they transpired, would not only bring some income but would pay back the last few months. But of course now we've worked for 3 or 4 months for no income, and there's no income in the foreseeable, save from last night again, which has really saved their ass. But there were some UK shows planned for April. They are now, I've managed to move them to September. I don't know if September's even going to be okay. There's a tour of Finland and Estonia at the end of May, beginning of June. I suspect we're going to have to reschedule. There was a USA tour planned, Midwest in August, and then East Coast in October. The Midwest tour of, there's 4 or 5 dates for places that we've worked quite hard at building the USA, and it's difficult with the visa costs and everything. Yeah. And that time is just getting eaten up. And I've managed to pull, there's a few shows that were booked for towards the end of August and into September, early September, and it'll break my heart if we have to cancel these. I don't know how easily schedulable they'll be, but it's the same for everyone. It's all up in the air. So luckily I've got this song coming out, this track coming out 17th of April, and I've got another single scheduled for May. I think I'm going to just have to try and get busy, and I'm lucky that I've got my own studio facilities here, so I can make videos, I can make and produce my own music. So no matter what, it'll maybe give me the impetus. I'm not the most prolific writer, the last couple of years I've only had a couple of new songs every year. I need to get my finger out and just get writing. But as you say, there's so much to do, just keeping the ship afloat, trying to stay on people's sites and just keep things ticking over. There's a lot to be done behind the scenes, so we just need to try and keep that going.
And Stick to Your Guns is the song, the single that's coming out Friday the 17th of April? It
is, yes.
All right, right at my 54th birthday is the 12th. I'm going to celebrate by telling everybody to go buy Dave Arcari's music. Is that going to be available on all the standard platforms? Is there a particular platform you prefer people to go to?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because I'd never spent much time thinking about platforms like Amazon and Deezer and Tidal and all these places, but they are actually quite, when you start looking at your stats from these things, they're starting. It used to be that Apple and iTunes there was more activity in iTunes than all the other services put together.
Mhm.
But since streaming's really taken hold, it's kind of harder to tell now. It's hard. Everybody's at it. I think. I mean, for me, I like I think Apple Music is potentially more financially in the short term more beneficial, but Spotify really has the ability to help grow things, and it has a kind of probably more of a positive effect, albeit not financial. So, and I don't know what it's like. I would say in the UK, more people are on Spotify than Apple Music. I suspect in the States it might be more heavily weighted towards Apple Music.
I'll add you to I'll add your single to my record label Gilpat Association Records playlist, because that's one thing that we can do is get people to add to your playlist, right? So I add you to that. We're all in this together, Now that's become advertising. I'm starting to see it's pissing me off. I've been saying that for years. We're all in this together, but I'll create a link and put it out there for Apple Music to lead people to you and stuff. And this is the kind of thing that I will encourage anybody to do. When you find somebody that you enjoy, be sure to share them. Dave and I are holding our heads up in the middle of all this chaos because we don't have a choice. If we curl up in the corner and give up, we're not only doing a disservice to ourselves, we're doing a disservice to the people that depend on the arts. So that's one thing that keeps artists going. But another thing is paying our bills, So if you find somebody's music that you enjoy, please go share it. Don't be shy about it. Don't be intimidated by the prospect. Whether or not people like you has nothing to do with whether or not you like the same music, although music can create bonds across barriers, across borders. Like right now, from Chicago to Glasgow, there's the love of music and the bond of music is getting us talking about what can we do
Definitely.
right now. So Dave, what about your website? What's your website?
Oh, it's www.davearcari.com.
DaveArcari.com. It doesn't get any easier than that, except to make sure that people can spell your last name, A-R-C.
No problem.
Yeah, A-R-C-A-R-I. That's right. Dave,
thanks, man.
Dave. It's not D-A-Y-V or anything crazy. It's just Dave.
Nothing crazy. No.
Dave Arcari.
It's a normal part of my name.
And this will be up on my podcast, Life, Music, and the Pursuit of Answers. And it will also be up on my podcast, The Working Circle. We've covered information good for both of them. I will take the video from our talk here and put it up on my personal Facebook where people are watching my side of the conversation. Basically looking up my nose from where my phone is sitting, and we'll get this this message out to a lot of people, and the message is music saves the world. We're going to keep it together. We're going to hold it together, and we've got this because of the we in that phrase. Dave, my deepest gratitude for taking your evening there. To spend the beginning of my afternoon with me, and may you all be, Margaret, please be safe and healthy, and let's keep holding our heads up, man. That's all we know how to do,
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Right back at you and Megan, and hopefully we'll see you once all this shit blows over.
I hope to, and if it isn't when you come here, one of these days we're getting over there. So my mom's name was Lilius, and she said it's from our Celtic background. It's Gaelic of some sort, but we had my great aunt Lilius, my grandma Lilius, my mom Lilius, my sister Lilius, and my niece Lilius. Everybody else in the family, everybody else, all the rest of us, it's Jane, Bob, Tom, Eric, and Phil. But my sister got the Gaelic name. So
Oh wow.
A lot of them have been over there, but I haven't gotten as far as Scotland when I've been over there. And
Next time, man.
yeah, next time. All right, peace, brother.
Thanks, man.